All right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Brock Beard from lastcar.info. We're going to get started with the disqualification show shortly. I appreciate you bearing with me here after the finish. Had to do a couple things here before we get started, but then we'll cover everything that was going on this weekend. No shortage of things to be talking about, both the good and the bad, of course. So we'll make sure we get all to that very shortly. Okay. Live. All right. Okay. So what I have playing behind me here, as you wait here, is the inaugural NASCAR race at Las Vegas, hosted by Gingerbread Man 46 on YouTube. Playing this in the background because of some one of the many storylines from today's race turned out to be a new record for the most laps complete by a last place finisher in the NASCAR race at Las Vegas. The previous record was actually in this race back in 1998 by Hut Strickland, who completed 150 laps driving for the Stavola brothers, the Circuit City Chevrolet that year, and fell out after that in the early stages, and ultimately was the last place finisher that started off this event. Tonight, Kurt Busch, unofficially still your last place finisher, pending the results of inspection that we're still waiting for. So we'll have this playing in the background as we now begin to wait for the results. Let me get the timer pulled up. We're starting this again a little bit later. Actually quite a bit later. We're now about approximately half an hour away from a possible reading on inspection results here. And we'll go in as long as we can here, both with the inspection results and talking about the week's action. And we'll throw in the trivia segment here a little later in the show while you have this. Let me make sure, get this put on here. Did I get the link? No, I did not get the link. Let me get the link here. See Dale Jarrett and Jeff Bodine there on the front stretch there. I love those old Ford Tauruses. I know a lot of people don't like them, and it was the turning point where they kind of took more liberties than usual about what was a car that they could use for the races, the racing or anything. If it was a production sedan model of a car versus using a coupe or a production coupe model of a sedan. I thought they looked great. I like those. I mean, they did kind of have like a weird wide-eyed look with the headlights on there, but I mean, a lot of my favorite drivers back then were driving the Fords, so that always helped too. We'll have more on that on another project I'm working on coming up here. All right, we got that stream put up on here. We'll get the chat opened up here. Is that working okay? Hopefully we're working good. Oh, let me bring this back. Okay. All righty. So before we go any further, first and foremost, I mean, the terrible news that came through during the middle stages of the race tonight. Condolences to the family and friends and fans of Mike Stefanik, who lost his life in a private plane crash earlier this evening. Reports are still ongoing about what exactly happened there. I'm not going to speculate on anything about that, but he's a driver that I never had the good fortune of beating myself. One of my first memories of it was more the report where he was clearly upset after losing that Daytona race there on the backstretch just the last few years ago, and being very clear with his emotions and everything, and why not for all the experiences that he had in his career. And we reported on Twitter there again, the only time he'd ever finished last in NASCAR's top 3 series. He had 52 combined starts, 26 each between Xfinity and trucks. It was a 1994 race at Daytona. The Xfinity race there that weekend was collected in a large accident. And that was actually a race that, was during a very tragic speed weeks that we did the video on with NASCAR Man a while back here earlier this year. It was a race that was fortunately not tragic then, but certainly, again, condolences to Stefanik's family and friends and fans. Hopefully we'll get some more information on that coming up. We'll see what's going on from there. So now looking ahead to lighter news, certainly, we'll talk about the races this past weekend. There's no shortage of action to be covering between the top 3 series. The Xfinity and Truck Series articles are already put on the website. So if you go to lastcard.info now, you'll already get the articles on John Hunter Nemechek and Ryan Sieg, who were two equally surprising drivers to score last place finishes this week. And we'll get into more of that as well. But of course, as I mentioned, Kurt Busch, unofficially your last place finisher of today's Cup Series race in Las Vegas to start off the playoff round. And Martin Truex taking a very firm stance towards another second championship in 3 years, and his first with Joe Gibbs Racing. Let's get the unofficial results here pulled up. Oh, hang on. Come on. Goodness me. And we'll see what's going on. Hey, Jimmy Johnson 07, welcome aboard. Yeah, it's but I mean, I thought generally, in general, it was a pretty good race. I mean, pretty competitive race there for Las Vegas. I know in the spring when they were bringing in the aero package for the first time this year, the 550 package and all that, there were a lot of complaints that this wasn't nearly as competitive as it could have been. And it was kind of the prototype to figure out what was going to happen. I know that the initial start was pretty crazy, but a lot of the racing in midway through the pack wasn't nearly as good as it had been before. This time around, perhaps a little bit because of the weather, a little bit because of the playoffs, a little bit because of everything else. Seemed like really good racing throughout the pack there. And Truex's role in the race didn't seem to really come about until a ways into it. Joey Logano looked like he was going to win this in a walk, but obviously the transitions from afternoon into evening, and then, of course, the incidents with Suarez there definitely threw a wrench into that and ultimately dropped him out of contention for the win. But very interesting to see, to see the racing through there, and good to see some decent competition out of it. Now, obviously, on the flip side, of course, my goodness, I don't know what that is. Piece of debris or something off the track there. What we got?
They're going to gamble for 400 miles on an engine that they have not practiced.
Oh, okay. Piece of material from the engine there. I watched this a while back, and I'm trying to remember, what the situation was. But here nor there, Las Vegas, the Cup Series racing at Las Vegas. Yeah, I mean, certainly a good move to have it under the lights there. Unfortunately, of course, the first part of the race still being during the hottest part of the day, and not to mention the middle of the desert. It's unfortunate that you still had a lot of heat-related issues there. I don't know what it was like in the garage area, but that was, I'm sure it was a challenge there with much as we saw at Sonoma and these other races earlier this year. So as the 98 race begins in the background there, again, we'll start at the back of the field here again and look at Kurt Busch. Kurt wasn't really a factor in the last place battle through the entire race until he was eliminated after some contact with the race winner, Martin Truex. That cut down a left front tire and sent him into the outside wall. He climbed out from the car under the damaged vehicle policy. That constitutes an immediate DNF from the race, which turned out to be ultimately the only DNF from the race. And much like, I believe, this race as well as some others that were mentioned here, actually the 2000 race, the last time that number one finished last in Las Vegas was Steve Park. Did anybody see the movie Mission to Mars? Like, that was actually the promotion that was done on Steve Park's paint scheme. I think Gary Sinise was in that movie. I didn't see it myself, but that was, early 2000 cinema. Is quite strange. But Steve Park finished last in that one. That race is actually rain shortened, and Jeff Burton won it. Mentioned that a little bit in our why late 90s NASCAR was awesome video. But that was the last time the one actually finished last in it. And last time Kurt Busch finished last was in 2008, the finale at Homestead. He has actually 5 previous last place finishes, that one the most recent, but almost half of his career has passed by since that actual that most recent last place run. So that definitely goes something to say about his career. Obviously, the first couple of years you had a lot of start and park teams, Kurt not being one of those, although he did drive for Phoenix Racing there for a while when they were trying to get some deals together when he had been released from Penske Racing and before he picked up work over at Stewart Haas and now over at Chip Ganassi's team. It's going to be an interesting one to write about because so much has happened in that time period there, and we'll cover that as best we can on that. The first part of the race, it looked like it was going to be a Reed Sorensen, Joey Gase battle for most of the race. Joe Nemechek was a little bit of a factor in there for a bit, but he kind of gapped himself away from the 77 and the 66. I thought for a bit that we were going to have something very similar to at Michigan a few years ago, where we were almost going to have the last two cars be on the same lap on, at the very end of the race. It almost feels like endurance racing, kind of like 24 hours of Daytona or that kind of thing, where you're hoping that they're going to be running at the exact same time and they can actually be a factor there at the end. But obviously, Kurt's last place finish ended up throwing a wrench into that, and they end up finishing in the 37th and the 38th spot. One thing I definitely want to talk about that was very impressive from this race, at the back of the field in particular, was Eric Jones. You saw that I did a lot of tweets about Jones, not just when he was in last, but also when he was climbing up the rankings. When Jones fell out with the combination of the throttle issue as well as the transmission issue, he fell 15 laps down, and he was about 9 laps behind the next two cars in front of him of Gase and Sorensen. Now, obviously, a Joe Gibbs car is going to be much faster than those two cars there. However, even with as much of the race left as there was, it probably wasn't likely that they were going to, close the gap enough to actually, get up there. And certainly the incentive's not so much there because the bottom 5 positions are all worth 1 point. Climbing out of the bottom 5 is about your only option with that. But although with a 39 car field, you could get a different situation there. But Eric Jones, did get a couple stage points there earlier. He got the 10th spot in stage 1, and then had that issue again. Fell 15 laps down, and the objective was clear. The team said, "Okay, look, you're 9 laps down. These other guys, you're 15 laps down. You're 9 laps away from these other guys. Try to go out there and just catch them." And that's what he did. And I think what was really impressive is, maybe not the metric of Bill Elliott trying to go back from being 2 laps down and winning the race under green. Very similar situation to just show how he was able to kind of rally up there and get past those guys in the very late stages. And ultimately it shows in the results here, being in the 36th spot. He got around Sorensen and Gase, and he was actually just 1 lap away from getting Garrett Smithley. And we talk about this before in a lot of these articles where a driver has fallen out of the race and then somebody behind them is still running. And then there's an issue about how many more laps they can run before they drop the guy that already fell out to last. This is a very rare situation where he's actually closing in on cars that are still on the track, where nobody else had gone to the garage area besides Jones and Busch, and you had that kind of a battle. So I was very impressed with that. I don't think it got that much coverage. Certainly, even when he returned from the garage area, I think that actually happened during a commercial break. So that was definitely interesting to see there. Let's see, looking further up the rankings. But I mentioned also Hut Strickland from this race here. He completes 150 laps on the old configuration. And you see the Las Vegas track not having the neon garage in the infield or anything like that. 150 laps on this track where it was much slower, much flatter. Didn't have the increased banking that you see on the track nowadays. I mean, you see right here from this onboard on, I guess it's Dallenbach's car, or Craven's actually, I guess, in the first part of the year. And, very different kind of track. If you spin like that, probably collect a couple of guys out there nowadays. It was 150 laps around that Hut Strickland was able to complete and still finish in the last spot. Whereas this time, Kurt Busch was clocked at 187 laps, and that is now the new record for most laps complete in a Cup Series race at Las Vegas among last place finishers. And again, a rarity with Kurt Busch and everything. Still pending results from inspection. We should be expecting those at any point now. And we'll get that pulled up here as well. Let me get that pulled up. Checking the feed here. And body measurements. And there was anything like that. All playoff cars getting some tech, weights, alignments, etc. This was posted 22 minutes ago by Pockrass, so they're working on that at the moment. Okay. But yes, a lot of the other competitors in the bottom end of the field there, 2 of them finishing in the bottom 5, and Kyle Busch having a little bit of problems there at the end, running the back of Garrett Smithley. The smaller teams ended up having kind of a big role in some of these moments here along the way. I was kind of thinking back to Alex Bowman losing out on a race earlier this year when he was caught up behind a Rick Ware car. And then you think back to Josh Bilicki's unfortunate mechanical issue at Pocono This is the thing. I mean, that's what makes this race racing as unpredictable as it is. A car that could be laps down could be a factor in the finish, even if they're not, not necessarily looking to be. They're just looking to get to the finish like anybody else. But an interesting situation nonetheless. But let's see. But I really thought it was some really good battles there at the back of the field among the people competing for the last spot. Very similar to some of these other mile and a halves we've seen. I believe at Kentucky was another one of these examples. We just had some other drivers that ran in, were actually able to run each other down, stay, once they get past, stay in their tire tracks, catch back up to them, and actually work the draft to kind of get back around them. I lost track of how many changes there were, at least in the first 15 or 20 laps. We'll get that broken down into the article. We'll try to get that up tonight, if not first part of tomorrow, talking about Kurt Busch or whatever the results of inspection is, as well as the situation with other drivers there as well. But I mean, generally, top 10 drivers were top 10 finishers were all playoff drivers. Almirola just outside the top 10. Jimmy Johnson, the top finishing driver that was not a playoff contender. Daniel Hemrick finishing in the 17th spot, finishing ahead of fellow rookie contender Ryan Preece. Michael McDowell and Matt DiBenedetto looked like they were going to try some pit strategy at the end of the race. Ended up both of them pitting. Caution didn't come that would have helped or hurt them anyway. It ends up being with McDowell in the 24th spot and Matt DiBenedetto in the 21st spot. McDowell also still very much locked in the battle with Joe Nemechek for the most last place finishes in Cup Series history. Both Nemechek and McDowell were in this race, but neither of them were really too much of a factor in the last place battle. Certainly not McDowell, and Nemechek was only briefly around that area. It seemed like, again, the 77 and the 66 were contesting that spot more than anyone. Looking further down the results here. So that's about most of what I want to talk about on that. If you have any questions or anything on the Cup race, we'll certainly go into that as well. Let's get into the Xfinity race. And I kind of just buzz through here and get as many of these stories as possible. It looked like it was going to be another ordinary last place finish for J.J. Yaley, which has been the start and park entry, the number 38 car. The number 93 has been kind of a part-time start and park this year. They've had a number of sponsored runs, especially with Josh Bilicki. And then, of course, the lead car from the RSS team, the number 39 with Ryan Sieg. The article that we put up, I wanted to kind of discuss a bit, kind of the ascendancy of RSS racing, especially since when we started this website back in 2009, the RSS team was firmly in the Truck Series, just kind of getting their legs under them. And they were firmly having a number of start and park entries that were taking the championships in the Truck Series right when we were starting to show it, between Mike Garvey and I believe Dennis Setzer as well from 2010 to 2012. But amazing, how much that team has improved. Obviously this may not be the best framework to describe that because, of course, what happened actually in the race itself. But Ryan Sieg, of course, now in the playoffs for the second time. Was in the playoffs a couple years ago, but this time had a really consistent start of the year. I managed to keep it smooth right to the end, even with Greg Alding just swinging for the fences there on some fuel strategy there, still finishing in the 7th spot. Although Alding missed the cut for the playoffs, I mean, they have nothing to hang their heads about. They were another outstanding story this year. I thought it was very appropriate during the Xfinity race at the start that Galding's lined up right next to Brandon Brown in the number 86 because those two teams and those two drivers have been really fun to watch this year, and I hope that they've gained a lot of support along the way because I've certainly enjoyed following them both as drivers and teams that are looking to make names for themselves that maybe aren't the big names or the Cup supported teams. And Galding, of course, having run in the Cup Series before, but good to see them get some good runs out there. Brandon Brown, 16th spot. Again, it's more or less been average for them this year, and Galding going even above where he'd been running before, again, the 7th spot there at the finish. It did, like I said, look like it was going to be J.J. Yaley in the last place spot. But then that ended up changing hands at the end of the day. We had disqualification results that came in. We've had several disqualifications in especially the Xfinity Series this year, and this being the latest example of it. Ryan Sieg was actually ultimately handed what was the first last place finish in his Xfinity Series career, but not his first last place finish in his NASCAR career. Actually, in the 2017 July race at Daytona, he was driving for BK Racing, had the first of several engine failures that really plagued the start of that race. The full write-up is on the website, and it's also linked in the Ryan Sieg article that was posted earlier today. But the first one for Sieg in all these other years of running in the Xfinity Series, I believe since 2014, he has not missed a single start since doing the Daytona race at the opening of that, and then had a top 10 run right to kick things off. That 39 car has definitely become a fixture out there, and a good story for everybody to follow. I mean, I almost don't mention him in these articles anymore because it's almost expected now that he's going to be in the top 10. If he's not, that's almost even more of a story. And I think that's another good measure of success for these drivers out there looking to really kind of improve their performance and become playoff contenders. So great run for him. I'm glad the disqualification didn't actually eliminate him from playoff contention, that they had enough points, that they had enough cushion on Gaulding, that Gaulding basically had to win in order to bump him out. But Sieg is going to be advancing with the rest of the group there, and that'll be definitely interesting to see. Obviously, the other big story from the Xfinity race, at least at this end of the field, was Landon Castle with an outstanding 9th place qualifying run for Morgan Shepherd's team, and also have been top 10 in Happy Hour. Castle has really shown, again, much like we saw with Timmy Hill when they were driving with the Hattori team's tires at Bristol, and also Austin Hill's run at Indianapolis just last week. Sometimes it's just a matter of just getting more resources, just either a fresh set of tires or a fresh driver behind the wheel, or just one little element, and suddenly one of these cars could be right up there. It's unfortunate that we didn't get to see Castle have as good of a run as maybe he could have had, because unfortunately, again, with Shepherd's team, they don't have a lot of extra tires, they don't have a lot of extra equipment. I like to always hedge my bets on that when the information comes out, because then you can have a situation like Starcom Racing had at Darlington, where they had to deal with Coors Light and they brought a whole lot of extra tires out, and suddenly, hey, they get a decent run. They get a better run than they usually were able to get. You always hope that maybe something like that's going to fall into place, but unfortunately it didn't, and only 20 laps into the race, Castle pulls off the track. But as the crew members were saying over the radio there, I mean, they have a lot to be proud of. A lot that they can take away from it. And certainly for Shepherd, whose PR person got in touch with me there and said that he's still recovering from bronchitis that he was suffering at Darlington, and to another degree at Indianapolis. He's still recovering well enough. Hopefully we'll see him back in the car pretty soon. If not, the next rounds here, we'll definitely be finding out. But in the meantime, Landon Castle continues to outperform equipment, much like we've been talking about with Gray Gaulding and Brandon Brown. In the 89 car, I mean, they had an issue with Loudon where he got in the car and they had a good qualifying run, but they had an issue with the throttle linkage sticking, much like what happened with Eric Jones tonight in the Cup race. And ultimately, they pulled the car behind the wall and ended up falling out of the race at that point. But Landon Castle, I mean, the thing that's easy to forget, not just the fact that he's coming back from that really hard accident he had in Indianapolis just last week, but also the fact that qualifying has been absolutely critical to Castle's career. Not only did he drive for a lot of small teams like Shepherd's in the past. I mean, back when we started this website, he was driving for Larry Gunselman's team. They had basically like the silver and black car with like the rear view mirror that was like falling off, like it was like dangling off the edge of the car. Or he was driving for Phoenix Racing when they really didn't have a sponsorship. They're just running the 09 after the Mikasuki tribe fell off as a sponsor there. He came on board and he got those cars in the race. And he made such a point on perfecting his qualifying approach that Castle did an online competition where he was challenging other sim racers to like put up great qualifying laps. I mean, and that was something that I remember that being, I think it was like 2012, 2013, right in that kind of neck of the woods there. So he's, that's been his bread and butter, is qualifying cars that maybe are on the verge of not making the race because of any one number of reasons: tires, the driver, the equipment, how old the car is, and just getting the car into the show. So kudos to Castle. Starcom is very fortunate to have him on board. I'm sure he's given them great notes there at the 00 to keep that team going. And obviously on the Starcom side, even though we're not seeing them up front necessarily, we're seeing them attract a whole lot of sponsorship as well. And I'm sure Castle's a big part of that. So very marketable driver, very consistent driver. And I think definitely a friend to a lot of these underdog teams and everything. Kudos to him for a good weekend. And on top of all this, to run it in the throwback car that he had at Shepard had at Darlington, that 1981 car, I thought that looked really nice in person. The red rims were really nice. I don't know if the pictures captured it really well enough, but I mean, it was really, they did a really good job on that. And so seeing it take more laps is definitely something really cool to see for sure. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have a lot of people in here. That's okay. We're doing this a bit later. I do apologize for that. I'll tell you exactly why. I was actually really hungry at the end of the race, and I just had to get something to eat. So I came on here as soon as I could afterwards, but we'll do the same show here. The timer probably should be going off at any minute now, and that'll jump into this. Yeah, we're right on top of it here. So we should be coming up pretty soon on getting disqualification results one way or the other. Whoop, hang on. And has everybody seen Slapshoe's video on Airbase Speedway? He posted a second part of it today. I won't spoil it for those of you who haven't seen it, but it's really good. I've really enjoyed this, and without giving too much of the video away, on my statistics, I'd actually overlooked that track was separate from Greenville Pickens Speedway. I actually listed it as Greenville Pickens in my statistics. Luckily, it wasn't reflected in the books that we published online, the statistics books there, but really, really enjoyable videos on there. And I would be remiss without pointing this out as well. Those of you on there that are in the Patreon, the Last Car Patreon, we have a new video that's on there that I produced with NASCAR Man that I narrated there. That's been posted on there. Definitely give that a look. It was a really interesting story. Again, kind of similar to the Slapshoes video in some respects. Another moment that's not really talked about, and there's some mystery about it. But definitely, if you're in the Patreon, definitely check that out. It's already been posted on there. I don't know when exactly NASCAR Man's going to post the video publicly. I believe in the next few days, if not first part of next week. They'll definitely stay tuned with him, and he'll give you more information on that. But I really enjoyed working on this one. And so I hope that comes across in the video itself. And we'll look from there. All righty. And yeah, it's been really good. A good week. I mean, it's tragic with Mike Stefanik's situation, because that's definitely put a pall over a number of things. But other than that, in the first part of this week, it's been a great week for a lot of NASCAR content and information like that. Let me take a poll as well for you guys here before we get into the Truck Series race here. Has any of you guys seen Blink of an Eye, the Michael Waltrip's movie? I know it was kind of short notice that they did this one night only thing back on the 12th. Really good, really good. I would recommend that very much as well. I expected anything about Dale Earnhardt is kind of well-traveled ground. I've made it very clear that it's a story that it's hard to bring a lot of nuance into, just because it was such a significant moment and it's been covered in so many different ways. But it does a really good job with it. I won't get into it because I'm seeing some comments in here for people who haven't seen it here, so I won't get into spoilers on that. Maybe we'll do a standalone video or something and put that to Patreon or something for people who have seen it. But we should have the results here very soon. But I believe it. I mean, I'm hopeful. I mean, I don't know if it's going to do like more of a nationwide release. It'd be great if it did. Because I know the "Won't You Be My Neighbor" documentary that they did with Mr. Rogers had a pretty good release. Yeah, I definitely recommend it. And you guys, if they do another release of it, or they put on DVD pretty soon, I mean, it's definitely worth a watch. I'll leave it at that. So let me get into the Truck Series results here as well. The Truck Series race was really interesting. Came back from work that afternoon. I get my alarm go off like that, and I was like, I almost forgot that it was on that night. But what an unusual one. Between the three races, I mean, obviously Kurt Busch having a very rare last place finish, Ryan Sieg getting his first last place finish, and it happening by disqualification. Those were big enough stories. But then having a situation where three playoff contenders driving for the same team had the same exact mechanical issue, apparently rear seal failing in their engines, two of them happening at the exact same time, almost the exact same point of the track, where it looks like one of them ran over something and it went through the engine of the other one. all of them failing in the first 45 laps of the race. Extremely unusual. Absolutely turned the Truck Series playoff battle on its head right at the cutoff race at the absolute worst moment. Grant Enfinger, I made a point about like how interesting it was that he was last of the playoff contenders and actually got passed by Gary Clute during the Mosport race a couple weeks ago. He was the first one eliminated by this particular issue, not the first one out. We'll get into that, of course. Grant Enfinger having that issue. He pulls behind the wall. He can't come back out. Matt Crafton following Johnny Sauter. Both of them blow up. Sauter looks to come back out there. The truck blows up a second time, and he's done for the day. And 3 of the bottom 5 spots are 3 Mosport trucks that were in the playoffs. And again, really ridiculous situation. I hate it for those guys. I mean, because it sounds like I mentioned kind of a comparison to Hendrick Motorsports in 2002, where they had not only their Hendrick Motorsports engines, but they leased them over to the Nelson Bowers team, their 2 cars. And all 6 of those combined cars blew engines in the Talladega race that year. And they all fell out of that one. This was the closest thing. That's the closest thing I could think of to this. But even then, they didn't have 2 of those cars blow up at exactly the same time, following each other in a draft. That's ridiculous. But you got to hate it for those guys. I mean, it's a rough situation there. Certainly helped out Tyler Ankrum, who still had to pedal to get up to 11th place and get his truck in there. And these 3 guys weren't the only ones that were having mechanical issues. Stuart Friesen, of course, having issues on his too. Las Vegas, I guess, is just an absolutely brutal track for these trucks. Talking to my brother about Phoenix last year, I think what's really interesting, one thing that he pointed out was that these trucks seem really underpowered for even a track like Phoenix. And obviously, another track like Vegas, where they added a lot of banking to it. I guess at Vegas, I mean, the engines are just right on the edge of actually of failing. And obviously, that's an aspect of any motorsport, but I guess particularly true in the Truck Series there. But last place ultimately didn't go to any of those drivers because when the race started, one truck did not, and that was the 11th place qualifier John Hunter Nemechek, who was handed his second last place finish and his first since the Talladega race a couple years ago, which was his first in his, I think it was like his 49th series start. Hey, watch Pocahontas on the Wonderful World of Disney. That's about the beginning of the downhill slope for the Disney Renaissance right there. But John Hunter Nemechek, not to get too far off track, the Barry's Bullets Chevrolet there. The Barry's company came on board to invest in both his ride there in the Truck Series as well as the Xfinity Series. Looked like he did much better in the Xfinity Series side, which was good to see. But still a situation there where they missed the start of the race, and it wasn't listed as it did not start. We talked about this before, where the did not start reason out has kind of fallen out of favor. It's almost been retired completely, much like the quit reason, where it's been cited out instead of transmission or vibration or engine or fuel pressure or whatever. Over the radio, John Hunter's team sounded like they were having an electrical issue. They talk about flipping a switch that was behind the driver's seat. That ultimately did not get the truck to fire. They had to push the truck behind the wall. They missed the start. And then about 20 laps into the race, they were just out of the race, and they loaded the truck up, and that was the end of that. An unfortunate situation for them because they qualified so well. I'm sure that they were looking to get a good run. But one teammate's struggle turned out to be another teammate's benefit. Because Tony Mrakovich, his teammate with the number 87 truck, remember Mrakovich earlier this year trying to enter his own team. He fielded a number 43 truck with the company, the Street Stores Hardware Company, that's been backing him in lower tier divisions in racing and trying to break into the Truck Series. Ultimately, that team we haven't seen, I believe, since they withdrew at Dover. But Mrakovich got into Nemco's truck earlier this year, brought that sponsorship on board, which is perfect for Nemco, because they've been looking for a sponsor all this year. They have all this equipment and experience. They've been having that problem ever since last year when John Hunter left to go into the Xfinity Series more full time. Mrakovich had a great run at Pocono. I believe he was 12th there. And then this time around ends up finishing in the 13th spot. Great run for him, the number 87 truck. And that's the first time this year that the number 87 from Nemco's team has finished under power. It actually hasn't finished a single race all year until just then. So great run certainly for them. Jordan Anderson was up there. He was working his way up towards the front of the pack, ends up finishing the 14th spot. Brennan Poole continues a streak of top 20s that has gone back to his second place finish at Charlotte. He ends up finishing in the 6th spot. right ahead of Brett Moffitt, which really gives you which really says something about how well Poole was doing. Moffitt he looked absolutely bulletproof back over at Mosport. So that was a pretty crazy situation there. Anthony Alfredo with a good run. Dylan Lupton, I mean, continuing to, much like we've seen with Galding in the Xfinity Series, Lupton has really made the most out of his Truck Series efforts there, so it's good to see him doing well. Christian Eckes there in the top three. Ross Chastain not quite able to pull off the victory there, but Austin Hill has definitely been making statements here in these last couple of rounds here, showing why he belongs here in the playoffs, and in spite of some controversies and stuff he's had on track, including the one with Johnny Sauter back in Iowa earlier this year. Great run for him and a great run for the Hattori team. Again, Hattori Racing Enterprises are continuing to pick up right where they left off last year with Moffitt. And will we see Moffitt and Hill going against each other, or Driver against his old team? Who knows? I think, quite honestly, if it was those two, as well as Ankrum and Chastain, I think you would have an outstanding top four. I don't know who would prevail on that. I think there would be a great story no matter which of them pulled that one off. And but not saying it wouldn't be good with the other drivers that are up there. Brett Moffitt has certainly been a good run, and Stuart Friesen this year breaking through with the win in Eldora. Great story as well. But we're gonna have to see, and that'll be interesting coming up there. Let's see. A lot of mechanical issues at the back of the field. They started dropping off there towards the end of the race there. Natalie Decker fell out with electrical issues this time around. Engine problems for Tyler Dipple, looking to return into the series again after he was wrongfully suspended going into Mosport. Mason Massey heading over to the Rian Brothers team. The number 33 there had an engine problem. Unfortunate deal for Jesse Iwuji. I'm glad he's okay after he had that hard wreck in qualifying. Unfortunately, they had to scratch that Rian Brothers truck. And the Kart Idaho team was very fortunate for them to get back into the show, and got Justin Johnson into the show there. Had a beautiful looking truck. I'm glad I was able to make the show, at least if not unconventional way. But Justin Johnson getting the 23rd position, not quite as good as they'd done before with I believe it was Tim Ward back at Eldora. A great run for them earlier this year, but definitely a big jump going from the dirt track over to Vegas. I don't know if they ran exactly the same truck or not, but I would imagine probably not. But you never know. Norm Benning's been running the same truck a number of times. And Norm we didn't see in this race. He actually didn't enter this one here, perhaps because of the large entry list and whatnot. So we'll see if we see him in the next couple of weeks here as the season continues to wind down here. All right. Nothing been posted for Pockris in 20 minutes. Okay, let's see if we have anything else. I don't believe we have. Oh, gosh. Yeah, you're right. I'm seeing the same thing. Yeah, no post by Pockris in the last 23 minutes. Usually pretty good. Iwuji withdrew so Johnson could race. I mean, I don't know if that was a situation, because they did change the car number on the 34 to the 08 of Johnson to the 34. I'm sure that maybe incidentally that worked out so Johnson could run it as his home track. But I think what was probably the situation, the car number usually indicates that they're treating the truck of Johnson's as a backup for the number 34. And it just happened to get that spot in there because Iwuji, I guess, would have qualified on owner points even with the crash, but they didn't have an extra truck. At least that's what it seems like. Otherwise, they would have rolled another truck off and had Iwuji start. But if Iwuji did work out that deal, I mean, more power to him. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that meant a lot to Johnson to run it as home track there and everything like that. Let's see. But yeah. But disappointing for the Thor Sport team. I mean, you hate to see that happen to anybody. I know people have their preferences about which driver over another and everything, but Sauter in particular has just had a miserable year this year, and it's been unfortunate to see. Much like we've seen with Jimmy Johnson on the Cup Series side, it's just the things have just been completely off there. So that's an unfortunate deal to see. But a lot of good stories this weekend to really take from this. This was actually a weekend that we had this one planned originally earlier this year. It didn't really work out, especially after once we did Darlington, we decided to scratch that. But Vegas is definitely one I'm looking into doing here, especially if one of these triple header weekends. The Truck Series has long been outstanding over at Las Vegas, and the Xfinity and Cup races are only getting better here. So that's definitely one we're looking on next year. What we may do, I was thinking about this the other night, we may have an actual like poll or something like that for our Patreon members, kind of like what Gluck does, where people like vote on which races they're going to cover. And add some conditions on ours, because I mean, what we do is we focus on Cup, Xfinity, and Truck. So we pretty much just limit it to those series, but maybe just kind of take a poll and see what people are interested in us covering and looking into that forward, because we don't have anything really firmly set. And also, just another update on this. We're going to mention this more in the Patreon as well. We're still working out the details about our next trip. Our original plan was doing Texas to Phoenix. Things are a little bit tight, not going to lie. So we're gonna see about doing Phoenix at the very least. And if we just do that, we'll still do the magnet on the door, and we'll do that same treatment, but it'll be like from just a road trip from our house over to Phoenix and doing that. So we're working on getting that nailed down. Of course, the credentials and stuff like that, that's all up in the air. We don't have anything confirmed on any of that. Don't expect to hear back on that one way or the other for several weeks. But we're getting to that time period where hopefully we'll get that up and try to squeeze in one more race before the end of the year. The absolute worst case scenario, again, anybody who is on the magnet that we have on the Twitter feed right now, you'll be on the next one whenever the next one is, and we'll have you on there, and we'll do the next one then, and the same deal with the drawing and everything. So that's still going to happen. It's just a matter of when and which races. So we'll get that done, and it's no big deal. Glad we did the trip that we did, because we got a lot out of the Darlington Motorsport stretch there, and we'll figure everything out from there going forward. Let's see. Okay, do we have okay, I see a couple notifications on my Twitter feed here. Do we have an announcement? No, still stuck with the missed call on Kyle Busch having a hammer left on the back of his car there. Gosh, Kyle just had a struggle about that. Oh yeah, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the going to the Placerville Speedway last night. I mean, first of all, let me preface this again by saying that again, nobody was, at least from what I saw, nobody was seriously injured. I didn't see any paramedics or anything like that But very fortunate, I will say, that nobody was there. Had a great night out there at the Placerville track. First time going out there. Track staff and the fans and stuff couldn't be nicer. I mean, everybody was really cool. We were sitting in the turn 4 stands. They had the 360 sprints out there with the mini trucks and everything like that. And then we had, I believe it was like one of the heat races for the 360 sprints. One of the cars coming off turn 4, the right rear wheel. And of course, on a sprint car, the wheels are just huge on those things. They gotta, catch the car when they're skating sideways there. The right rear wheel somehow ripped free. There was, I don't know if they had a tether that failed or if there wasn't a tether on there at all or anything, but same difference was the same. I'm sitting here, and suddenly there is this tire literally going over this gap, this part of the fence. It's not really a gap. There's a lower part of it, because it's like 3 different fences. There's one fence right in front of you that's a pretty good height. There's another fence that's catty corner to that, and then there's a lower point where like a chain link, I think it's like an access road there that goes through there. It went over that, and it was literally at the point where you see it, and from the point that I first saw it to when it was like right over my head, like maybe 10 feet over my head, I was thinking like, oh, wow. I was like, oh my God, like it was that. And then once it went past 12 o'clock over my head to this way, and I saw it start to drop, I'm like, oh my God, it's going to land right next to me. And I was at the left side of the stands. So there was like another section of the stands next to us. Then there was a gap, and then there was the main stands next to that. So the tire, now then luckily the tire cleared that part of the stands and then disappeared into the gap between. And at that point it was like, okay, good. It didn't get into the stands, but at that point it's like, oh my God, did it, is there somebody there? Because there's people going up and down, of course, all that time, bringing concessions up and down. So I'm going down there, and everybody else is going down there, and everybody's huddling around. Meanwhile, I mean, they're just towing the car off the track. Caution's still going. Cars are still circulating. Nothing unusual. I mean, I don't know if it happens all the time or not, but I was in there, and I went down and saw the tire just sitting there perfectly in the little gap there next to the road, and it had bounced off the side of the stands there. And I noticed those stands did have a little catch fence, like little barrier of their own. I don't know if it hit that. My brother said that it bounced right off of that barrier and then into the gap. And luckily, thankfully, nobody was hurt. Driver seemed okay and everything, but a very scary situation. I can't overstate that. I don't want to make too much of it because, again, nobody was hurt. As far as I know, no harm, no foul. Again, people at Placerville Speedway were outstanding. No problems with that. And everybody was very calm about that, which makes me think how often that maybe happens. Somebody wrote the word "oops" right after it in the dust of the thing afterwards. But then there was a fan came down there, looked at the tire, just picked it up and rolled it right off, and I guess loaded it up in his truck. I don't know if he was with the team or was just a fan or whatever. But they just kind of kept going. So that was unusual, a little, definitely something you hope not to see. But this is the risk with racing. I mean, there's a lot of risks that the drivers put up, and as well as the fans as well. But gosh, you certainly hope that wouldn't be that common, because that was a huge tire. I mean, my God, the picture doesn't do it justice. But again, not to make too much of that there, for sure. But very thankful everybody's okay, and it was but a hair raising moment. Not gonna lie, it was a hair raising moment, but. It turned out to be the season finale for a lot of the circuits this year too over at Placerville, and they put on a good show there. They had the mini trucks out there. They had I think the Pure Stocks or something was out there, the dwarf cars and all that. I think they're doing like a monster truck show or something like that next month. So they got a good series of venues out there. It was a stacked weekend. They say at that event at the exact same time they had the World of Outlaws in Calistoga. And then my home track at the Antioch Speedway, they had an evening of racing there. That's one of their last weekends. I think they wrap up 1st of October. So, good action all around there. But that was really interesting to see. But yeah, a little another one to scratch off the bucket list. But again, I think great people up here, up in the foothills, Northern California here. Great race fans out there, and I'm sure a lot of them were up at the blink of an eye screening. I remember brother saw it up here. I saw it back over closer to the Bay Area, and both of them had about 20, 25 people in the theater there, which I was surprised by. I didn't think a lot of people would show up for a NASCAR documentary. Say what you will about the popularity of the sport, but there's definitely people that are interested in it. And I think hopefully we've reached the bottom of the parabola here, and we're starting to dig back out of it again. That would definitely be good to know. Do we have another call on this? I think I see a couple posts on Pockrace's page. We probably have one. Nope, I don't see one. Gosh, maybe it was good to start this show later after all. Do we have a call? Nope, I don't have one here. Now it has been 33 minutes since then. I imagine it's probably longer because, yeah, I mean, as you posted earlier, they're going to have all the playoff guys in there and doing that whole deal. So it's going to take a bit longer to get all that done. No, we don't have a call. Okay. Yeah, no deal on that. So let's do this. Well, okay. Well, here, let's go ahead and jump headlong into our trivia segment. I brought the Trivial Pursuit. Oh, that's not the best view of it. There we go. The Trivial Pursuit thing back. So we're going to go ahead and do this. Yeah, perhaps the timer should be spent about half an hour. Yeah, probably. We'll just leave it open and we'll just see whatever the call is, and we'll sit tight here in the meantime and do a little bit of trivia while we have the Vegas race going in the background. So let's see. Okay, we're going to do no. Oh, okay. Oh, hang on. Come on. I need to do this. There we go. Need to reset this. Pick the wrong setting here. Okay, so we're gonna get some trivia going here. It's got to get the right setting. Okay, we'll start off with now. I think we haven't done this in a while with this one here. Let's get to the categories here, and we'll see which category you guys want to do, and we'll take some choices here. No, just questions and answers. Okay, that's what we want. Okay, select a category. Okay, so here I'm gonna go through these categories. Go ahead and type in your comment which category you want us to do, and we'll just stick with that category for this one. And then next time we do this one, we'll reset it and we'll keep going from there. So, okay, here we go. Select a category. Okay, so the categories we have are NASCAR, are pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So again, we'll go through it again. The categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and wild card. Okay. Okay, we have one vote for pits. We have one vote for drivers. Any other votes here? Let's see. Wild card. Okay, we got a couple for wild card. We got another one for drivers. We got one for teams. Okay, everybody's got different ones. That's okay. Let's see. So we have 2 for drivers. We have 1 for wild card. We have 1 for teams. We have 1 for pits. Looks like drivers has it so far. Any other picks here? Is this Kahoot? I don't know. We'll see what we got here. Okay, looks like drivers has the pick so far, so we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll do there. Teams, tracks. Alrighty, so drivers will be the candidate. Okay, here we go. So the first question. Who was the first Cup driver to win over $1 million for a single event? Who is the first Cup driver to win over $1 million for a single event? Go ahead and put in your guesses right now. Don't wait too long, because I'm going to think you're looking at Racing Reference. I know that's what I would be doing. Bill Elliott is one guess. Darrell Waltrip is another guess. Darrell Waltrip, Dale Earnhardt. Okay, good guesses all. NC. Who is the first Cup driver to win over $1 million for a single event? Yes, single event. So you have Bill Elliott. Good guesses. The answer, Dale Earnhardt. Dale Earnhardt. Maserati 9, you got it, man. Yeah, it seems like a trick question. You think there would be Bill Elliott with the Winston Million in 85, but yeah, no, apparently not. Apparently not. I guess an earlier, well, I guess it would be an earlier All-Star race, because the All-Star race started in 85 also. Interesting. Well, there you go. Let's see. Okay, next one. Here we go. What Charlotte bus driver later drove to an impressive 46 NASCAR victories? What Charlotte bus driver later drove to an impressive 46 NASCAR victories? So take your picks on that. A bus driver from Charlotte drove to 46 NASCAR victories, presumably in the Cup Series. Could be incorrect, but you never know. Buck Baker is one guess. Buddy Baker is another guess. Any other guesses? A Charlotte bus driver who won 46 NASCAR victories. Okay, Buddy Baker, okay. Give up here. The answer, Buck Baker. Maserati 9, you got it again. There you go. I think we got a ringer in the group here. Benny Parsons, that's a good guess too. There we go. Definitely from a different time period. All right, here we go. What year? Now, this is, again, this thing is from 1998, so some of these driver questions are probably going to be, again, same time as this, actually. What year did Derek Cope start driving full-time for the NASCAR Winston Cup? What year did Derek Cope, our good old favorite driver, Derek Cope, start driving full-time for NASCAR Winston Cup? What year? Full-time in Cup. We have 88. We have 89. We have 89. We have 83. Any other guesses for when Derek Cope started driving full-time for the NASCAR Winston Cup? Full-time in the Cup Series for Derek Cope. We have all guesses in the 80s. 89, 89, 83. Of course, the 1990 Daytona 500 winner. The answer, 1986. 1986, the first year that Derek Cope ran full-time for Winston Cup. Okay, stumped the group there. 91s, there we go. Nobody got it. That was a hard one. That was a hard one. Cope was one of the guys I pulled for. That wasn't going to be my guess either. I thought the 88s had it. Alrighty. Okay. Yeah, we're all off our game tonight. It's a late night tonight. It is late. It's 9:08 over here, so I apologize for those of you on the East Coast there where it's running even longer. Oh, Do we have new? We have results here. Hang on. We might have something here. Let me look. Nope. I don't think we do. No, looks like we don't. He's not from Pockers's page here yet. I wonder if Pockers knows if we follow his page here on this. But yeah. Yawning and I'm an hour ahead of you. Yeah, I'm with you. Oh, you're making me on. Don't do that. Okay. Luckily, tonight's disqualification show is brought to you by Mountain Dew Voodoo. That's actually what that's called. I'm not making a joke. Voodoo. This is a mystery flavor that I found over at a gas station on the way over here, and it's clear. It's the color of, well, like I guess you get like a white cherry flavored Powerade. It's not bad. It's not bad. If you're curious what it tastes like, I'll say it. If you don't want to hear it, plug your ears. I'll say it right quick. I'll say it right then. It tastes like a strawberry. It tastes like a strawberry starburst. It literally tastes like a strawberry starburst. That's what it seems like to me. I could be wrong. Yeah, pretty good though. Pretty good. We're gonna hit some more of this because I'm gonna need a little bit more of that too before I get the article done right. Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's worth trying. It's definitely worth trying. I'm more of a Code Red guy. I don't play video games or anything. About the only part of me that resounds with gamer culture is just my mouth, because the Code Red stuff I think is delicious. I think that's really good. That's my go-to. I actually got some of the fridge downstairs, but didn't have that for today. But I got that for next time. Let's see. Whoop. Oh, hang on. Turned off on here. Here we go. Okay. Here, let's I'm gonna switch up the categories here and get some of the other categories you guys want here too. We'll do the wild card here for the next one. And let's see here. Let's see how wild the wild card is. What prompted the use of extra security at tracks during the 1991 season? The 1991 season. What promoted the use of extra security at tracks during the 1991 season? What event, I would presume, was the reason for extra security at tracks during the 1991 season? So guns, the Gulf War, the war, death threats. Okay, yeah, these are all valid guesses. They're all valid. I mean, it could be anything. It could literally be anything during the 91 season. It doesn't even say which part of the 91 season. I'm pretty sure the majority here are right about the Gulf War. The answer, Operation Desert Storm, also known as the Gulf War. There we go. So we got 3 votes for that. Maserati Steven, Jimmy Johnson, Roblox. There you go. Super Bowl 25 at the same time, if I'm not mistaken. The Bills, the wide right game in the spring of 1991, or I guess the late winter, exactly. Alrighty. Great pre-race to that race, too. If you watch 91 Daytona 500, the pre-race to that and the rendition of Proud to be an American. I know that a lot of discussion, of course, this time of year about the first Cup race held after 9/11, the September Dover race. Definitely brings back memories of that as well. The rampant patriotism and the response from the crowd there, very, very similar there. Definitely interesting. Let's do another wild card question here. What owner provided most of the cars used for the filming of Days of Thunder? Oh, so for those of you that follow this channel, you know this answer already. What owner provided most of the cars used for the filming of Days of Thunder? Rick Hendrick? Yeah, you got it. It's Rick Hendrick. Yes. Rick Hendrick. There you go. You watch the video. There you go, man. See? We got another video I'm working on also myself that I'm going to try to get up on there. Separate from, doing the stuff with NASCAR, man. I have another video I want to put together here. I don't know when it's going to be ready. Hopefully in the next, if it's ready the next month, that would be great. If I could get that up before the season's up. If not, we got some other stuff I'm working on there. So stay tuned for that. We got, we're not done with the videos I'm putting on the Nadu 1064 channel. So we'll see how that goes. All righty. So here we go. We're doing our wild card one. Then we'll probably do pits next. We'll see what the pits questions are like, because I saw a vote for that earlier. Okay. What fellow driver claims to have given Darrell Waltrip his nickname Jaws? Okay. Now, this is a bit of a throwback. For those of you longtime watchers of the disqualification show, you'll remember that this same question came up on the Ricky Rudd car that we do for the trivia at the other house. Now, remember when we read that off, it phrases a trick question where it said that people believe it to be X, but it's actually Y. And so we had that answer. So this will be very interesting. Will this do the exact same thing? Does this have the same chip in it that the other one has, where it's going to give us the same answer? So we'll see. We'll see. Your phone said cake. Why did your phone say cake? Try to do Kale Yarborough? Cake Yarborough would be pretty good. Have a cake that looks like the old Hardee's car. That'd be pretty sweet. That, literally. Okay. Okay, let's see. Alrighty. Which driver? Kale Yarborough. Kale Yarborough. We got Bill Elliott. Also, I vote on here. The phone or the Trivial Pursuit unit here says Kale Yarborough. Okay, so it doesn't even try to say Kale Yarborough is predicted as saying it, but it was actually I think the Ricky Rudd one said that Kale Yarborough is credited with it, but it was actually Junior Johnson. Like that was like, and I was surprised it could fit that on just the little LED screen. But this one it just says Kale Yarborough. You probably actually can you see that? No, you can't really see that. If I held that up right to the camera, oh yeah, I guess it does show up. Okay, well good. Gotta keep that in mind for like the other ones here. Okay. So the wild card. Oh yeah, I was gonna do this. I was gonna do this here. Hang on. Okay, I accidentally hit the button for the wild card. So we'll get this one here too. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver was born in Calera, Alabama? Calera, Alabama. What driver is from there? What driver? Now you can presume any of the top 3 series as of 1998. A driver born in Calera, Alabama. Calera, Alabama. There's see it on there. Does it show up very well? Yeah, it doesn't show up great. But yeah, there you go. Bobby Allison, Hut Strickland, Cale Gale, Red Byron. Oh, lots of good guesses. Lots of good guesses. So many drivers from Alabama. So that would be pretty hip. Bobby Hillen. Speaking of Bobby Hillen, definitely listen to the NASCAR Scene Vault podcast with Hillen. That was a very fascinating interview. I didn't realize that the history of the Stavola Brothers racing team was in there. Definitely, I mean, I feel like I talk about the Scene Vault podcast every week, and worthwhile. It's a great listen. Listening to that on the trip up here was really good. Okay, here we go. Calera, Alabama. The answer is Hut Strickland. Hut Strickland, who incidentally was the last place finisher of this race, completing 150 laps. So, hey, perfect timing on that. Although we're seeing, looks like Jeff Green in the 29 car spinning out there off of turn 2. An unusually calm race in this one for all the hype that was built into it. It didn't turn out to be as much of a wild one as the first Brickyard 400 turned out to be. So there we go. Okay, let me get the pits questions. Okay, we did that. Okay, no. Okay, we're going to do a pits question here for the next one. Alrighty. What do you call the rubber wedge between the springs that makes a ride stiffer? What do you call the rubber wedge between the springs that makes a ride stiffer? What do you call those? Spring rubber, camber. About to fall asleep? Yeah, that's okay, man. We're gonna wrap up pretty soon here. If you fall asleep, man, don't worry about it. We're running late here. I know. Do we still not have a call? I can't believe we don't have a call. Oh, wait a minute. We do have a call. We have a call before you go to sleep, bud. 4 minutes ago, tech is complete. Truex is the winner. Kyle Busch, Almirola, Bowman had one lug nut not secure, which is a fine. No other issues. So Martin Truex Jr. is your winner, which means Kurt Busch is your last place finisher, his first last place finish since 2008 at Homestead. So Martin Truex Jr. is your winner. Tech inspection is there. So, okay, good. We got a call. You can go to sleep now. We'll wrap this up here pretty soon. Let's do this pit question here for sure. We'll get that on in here. And the answer for this is yes, the spring rubber. So that's the answer on that. Spring rubber is the answer for the piece in there. So, yeah, we talk about Packer, camper, a lot of good terms in there, good guesses on that. So, okay, perfect timing, perfect timing. I think you had something for us, Jimmy Johnson, Roblox. Okay, so we'll wrap up the show here because I know it's late for a lot of you guys here. Thank you so much for tuning in for another disqualification show this week. We'll be back at the other location next week for Richmond, and we'll see what happens in the next round of the playoffs. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. LastCar.info is the website. At LastCar on Brock is the Twitter. And the Patreon is patreon.com/LastCar on Brock for more information. Stay tuned to all those. And in the meantime, we will see you next time around.